Aloha, welcome to another episode of Love What with Audrey Weilai, where we ask friends and mentors what love means to them, aside from romantic love. And today we have an amazing guest, Lucy, who's an acclaimed author and publisher, co-founder of Rethink Press, as well as bookmagic.ai. Welcome, Lucy. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Audrey.
You've published 14 books to date.
That's right. My latest book, Book Magic, it's called, which kind of goes alongside the Book Magic AI app, as you just mentioned, the book writing app. That's my 14th book. So yes, I have written a lot of books over time.
Could you tell us a little bit more about bookmagic.ai? I really love using it.
It's great to hear that you actually use it. Yes, of course. So Book Magic is an app for planning and writing the book that builds your business, essentially. It's, we say business books, but when we talk about business books, it's the books about the author's business. They're not limited to any particular kind of business. It's your business that you should be writing your book about. So to go back a bit, I have been mentoring many entrepreneurs through the process of positioning, planning and writing their books for the last 12 years, really. I started
Wow.
Rethink Press. Yeah, it's all getting a long time now. I started Rethink Press with my business partner, Joe Gregory, in 2011. And we started it as an experiment to cater to entrepreneurs and experts, coaches, consultants who wanted to write and publish a great book, but probably had too much of a niche market to get a traditional publishing contract. I mean, traditional publishers are still kind of gatekeepers to their own kind of publishing.
Yes.
The reason is traditional publishers invest in the book, so they need to get a return on their investment, and their return can only come from actual book sales. And most of the authors we were working with weren't necessarily going to sell lots of books. They were going to use their books to build their business and their own authority. So we decided to try a different business model where the author paid for the production of their books, but we would give exactly the same service, the same level of quality as a traditional publisher. So we started that sort of not quite knowing how well it would land. And luckily it did. I mean, it took off very, very quickly. Then we realized that most of our authors were not professional writers. They were the experts in their field, but they had mostly never written a book before, often didn't know where to start. The process of writing was kind of opaque to them. They didn't really know how to get through the process. I started sort of mentoring. I also started to work with the Key Person of Influence program. I'm sure
With Daniel
with
Priestley.
Daniel Priestley, exactly. So I became the published mentor of Key Person of Influence, KPI, as it's known. So that's where I took all these literally hundreds and ultimately thousands of entrepreneurs through a process that then I developed and refined over the last sort of 10 years, really, with 7 authors. We had a fantastic coaching team with Rethink Press, so we don't only publish books, we also help people to write books. But then kind of AI came up. It seemed like just a wonderful opportunity. We also met up with a fantastic tech developer called Jonathan Farrar, who was actually on the KPI program. And we sort of jointly came up with the idea of creating an app for the writing process. So essentially that's what it is. That's where we've got to. We launched a year ago and it started with really a minimum product. So it did what it said on the tin. It took you through the process. But now we have an absolutely amazing app. You start at the beginning with, you don't even have to know what your book's going to be about. It will help you develop your ideas and your process, understand your ideal client who you're writing to. It will then take you through the very detailed planning process that I developed the process literally using colored index cards for KPIs in the room. And now that's gone into Book Magic. So it's all very kind of easily and cleverly done online. So you do your structure first. and then you write, and the AI, I must say, the AI is not there to write the book for you. AI generated content is not what people want to publish, but it does everything else almost. It helps you, it suggests, it comes up with ideas, it helps you structure, it helps you come up with concepts and fill out different sections, things like that. But mostly what people are writing, what our authors are writing, the content is in their head. That's what they should
Yes.
be writing about, their experience as a business person, as an entrepreneur, as a service provider,
Mm,
coach, whatever they do. That's the content of their book. So that's what we do. And
yes.
Book Magic also then helps at the other end when you've got your book out and published. It can create a whole sort of promotional campaigns for you. It's really amazing to watch. You've got your book in the app. You kind of ask it to write 12 LinkedIn articles for me on
Oh,
my book, and ping 20
yes.
seconds later you've got your articles, and it will post them for you. So it's,
Oh my, I think it's a fantastic product and service. I saw that now it includes self-publishing as an option as well.
we haven't
How
quite
come?
launched that yet, but we are definitely
Okay.
going to. Yes, that's the next thing that's coming out.
How come? Because Rethink is a hybrid publishing house.
That's right. So Rethink is a publisher, and we produce and publish high quality books that cost a fair amount of money for the authors
Yes.
to publish with us. Self-publishing is what we're going to put at the sort of within Book Magic. So that will be a much cheaper option and less human involvement, shall we say. So there
Sure.
will be more AI editing and correcting of
Hmm.
manuscripts, proofreading, and it would all be within the app. While at the moment, when you go to Rethink Press, it's, you're interacting with the team of publishing professionals, and the difference is the process and the production of the book at the other end.
Out of all the 14 books you've written so far, have you noticed how you've changed? Because in one of the articles you said in the beginning you learned how structure and planning was so important.
Yes, when I got to that point, I'd published a couple of books. I was in a previous kind of iteration of my life. I was a work-life balance expert and consultant. So
Yes.
that's what I wrote my first books about. But I was commissioned by publishers to write a self-help book on work-life balance when it was a new thing, but the publishers knew
Mm,
exactly what they wanted. So my next writing project after that was to do the thing I'd always wanted to do, which was write a novel. Nothing to do with
yes.
business, nothing to do with business books. And I thought, well, I've been told what to write. I've written nonfiction. Now I'm going to get all creative, and I'm just going to flow, and it's all going to be wonderful and original. Thoroughly enjoyed myself. I wrote letting it kind of pour out of my head, and I sent it off to an agent that I knew, and she came back to me in a couple of weeks, and I thought, oh, that was quick, wonderful. She must love
Yes.
it. And she said, your, your book is both boring and unbelievable.
No.
So I was devastated. I thought, oh my goodness,
Yes.
how can I have written something that bad when writing is what I pride myself on being? And I chatted to her and moaned a bit. It's unsatisfying for a reader not to
Mm,
have underlying structure to a book. It's not just about flow and creativity.
yes.
So I thought about what she said, and I did realize that she was entirely right. So I did a lot of work. I learned about, I read a lot. I realized that there were structures that actually worked for fiction and non-fiction. You need to have solid structures. I did then write 3 novels.
Yes.
First novel, which was a reconstruction of the one I'd so badly kind of started with, and it won a competition, and it got published by Macmillan, which was brilliant. So I
Wow.
really thought that, yeah, well, that's what structure does for you. That's the difference
My.
between non-structure and structure.
Hmm.
So when I then got to the place where I was mentoring entrepreneurs through a book writing process, I thought this is what they need. We need a
Yes.
system for creating structure at the start of
Hmm.
the process, because it will make the writing much easier. They won't go off into sort of just writing any old, whatever comes into their head like I did. They'll follow the structure, and they will come out with a really satisfying and useful book. So that's my structure journey.
Wow. And let's change the subject a little bit. What is non-romantic love to you, and how is that tied into writing and publishing books?
Such an interesting question. Yes, I mean, this is such a great subject for your podcast. A non-romantic love to me, I was sort of thinking about this. I think the love of my life really has been books. I mean, as a child,
Mm,
I was surrounded by books. I used to go to the library a lot. I just read in a very unstructured way, I suppose. Whatever came my way, I read. I love reading books. It's interesting. I don't particularly enjoy short stories, for example. I love the sort of size and shape and the way a book will take you into another world. And it doesn't matter whether it's
mm,
fiction or non-fiction, but for me, that's the purpose and the success of a book, to take you somewhere new, to immerse you in somebody else's thinking. Books
yes.
cross time and space, and they are the kind of perfect and extraordinary format for
Mm,
communication. And I actually think everybody should write a book, no matter what they do, and no matter whether it's fiction or non-fiction. Everyone should give it a go. But that's a non-romantic love to me, is the book.
yes. Wow. Who are some of your favorite authors?
Gosh, that's that's such a difficult question. So many. I read
Yes.
such a lot. I actually listen to a lot of audiobooks, and they're
Yes.
all fiction because I do so much reading of non-fiction
Mm,
in my kind of business
mm,
life. Some of my favorite authors in terms of fiction are people like Barbara Kingsolver. There's a great author called Tim Sullivan who writes
okay.
detective stories with
Mm,
a central character who's autistic, and I've just
okay.
devoured his books. And I just think it's sort of like you learn so much from fiction as well as non-fiction. I think
Yes.
he's so clever in the way he has sort of externalized the,
Mm,
or one person at least, but one kind of autistic brain, and that's a fantastic achievement. I love books for being able to do so. I love Daniel Priestley's books. I
yes.
work with Daniel. I genuinely think he has a very unique take on life, and also his writing style is really interesting too. So.
Mm,
So yes, all sorts really. I mean, I could go on. I could say Jane Austen and Shakespeare, or sort of, all.
yes. You and Daniel really believe writing your own book and publishing it is such a good tool to promote your business. Can you say more about that?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I always say there are four things you're going to get out of writing a book for your business. And the first one is just to do with the writing itself. It's not even to do with kind of the book being published, but writing a book. And this is why I think it's such an amazing format. We say a business book should be 30 to 40,000 words. When you've planned out a structure which takes your reader through the journey, usually the journey you'll take your ideal client on,
Yes.
and you plan that out, and then you write and you fill in the 30 or 40,000 words that go around that. You gain such a lot of clarity on what you do. You've put it into
Mm,
words, kind of optimized it in the best possible way. And not only have you got a lot of clarity, but it all goes into the archive of your mind. So now when you speak, with talks, workshops, or anything, it's all just there. You've got it out of
yes.
your head in the words. So, and it's a fantastic piece of self-development. So that is for you personally, but also it does
Mm,
benefit your business when you do that because you get this clarity. But then I think a book is the ultimate format. It's kind of iconic, really, when your name's on the front of a
mm,
book and it's distributed through the world in the rather extraordinary and unique way that book distribution works. It goes out to people and it reaches people you would never be able to find necessarily. Just having written your book makes you the expert in your field. People go looking for experts on Amazon. If you haven't written your book, you're not going to be found. If you want to be spoken to by a journalist, have a speaking gig, tell yourself to your clients, just saying, here's a copy of my
mm.
book. It just changes people's perception of you. It goes, yes, they go, yeah,
Wow.
oh, you've written a book. You are obviously an expert. You are an authority. And that happens. And then the other thing you can do is simply use your book as, I wouldn't say as a business card, because that sort of devalues it, because a book
Mm,
actually has intrinsic monetary value. But if you gift
yes.
it to people, if you get it out there, if you leverage your book to build your business, that is the way that you get new prospects, new clients, higher prices you can charge, all that sort of thing. It makes you more visible. People come to you and say, will you speak on your
Yes.
subject? You're an author. So those are the ways that a book really elevates you and your business to a different level.
Mm. And what's the main difference between self-publishing and hybrid? Because self-published books always look like self-published books to me.
That's true. I'll say not always. Some self-published
Okay.
books, it's perfectly possible to get quality self-published books.
Mm.
There's three different methods of publishing. At one end of the scale, there's the traditional publisher. They might be the big publishers like Penguin or Simon and Schuster that we know about, but also the independent publishers like Wiley, Kogan Page, who specialize in business books too. But
Yes.
they are the ones who decide whether your book is worth publishing to them, whether it will build their business. Then at the other end, you've got self-publishing, where the author that's only become a possibility since Amazon and print on demand kind of popped up sort of 25 years
Mm.
ago or so. And that's wonderful. I think it's great that everybody can get their own book published. But publishing is more complex than people tend to assume. And as a self-publishing author, you don't necessarily know what you don't know. It's a big project publishing your book, being a self-publisher, because you have to work with other professionals. In a way,
Mm.
self-publishing is a misnomer. You cannot do this on your own. You must have a professional cover designer, professional editor, a proofreader. You need somebody to
Yes.
typeset and design your book. So you become the project manager of all these people. You have to
Wow.
find them. You have to make sure that they do a good job. And often you don't know if they've done a good job or not if you're
Mm.
not a professional publisher yourself. And then you've got to get it out there. And yes, you can just sort of upload it to Amazon, but that's only one part of the distribution system. So
Mm.
that's self-publishing.
Yes.
Hybrid publishers are actual publishers. That's what their professional, work is.
Yes.
I can really only talk about Rethink, but there are other reputable hybrid publishers out there. But we have a team of editors, of cover designers, of proofreaders who are trained to work on this particular kind of business book. We take on the project management. We have the distribution systems. We have the data systems that underpin book publishing that you just don't know about it if you're a self-publishing author. So it's
No.
exactly the same as being published by a traditional publisher. It's just that you have paid for the publishing package to make it happen. But having said that, as a
Mm.
self-published author, you also have to pay your professionals. So you still have to pay editors and cover designers. And
Mm.
if you don't want to do all the project management, you've got to pay somebody else to do that. So you might as
Right.
well go to a hybrid publisher and get that done for you. That's the difference
That's
between
so interesting.
hybrid and
Yeah.
self-publishing.
What about after assembling the book and printing them, what about marketing them? Self-publishing versus hybrid?
Really, in any form of publishing, the author is now in charge of promotion and marketing. They have to do
Okay.
the work, but with
Yes.
self-publishing, it's entirely down to you. Again, you could, for example, pay a PR company to do some work for you, or you can pay people to do your social media output, whatever it is. With hybrid publishing, we have a PR partner, we have a PR package if people want to use that, and it's very effective. But we also do marketing with people. It's not done for you. From the beginning, we help our authors to position their books so it will attract their ideal clients. We work on the title and subtitle with them, which is really important. We make sure
Yes.
that is subtly branded to their brand. Our
Mm.
books are like Rethink Press books. They look like the authors, they don't look like a marketing brochure. That would be awful. But,
Mm.
they are
Yes.
branded. We want the author to have the book that fits in with all their services, looks like what
Yeah.
they do. My business partner, Joe Gregory, he comes from a marketing background. And
Okay.
every couple of weeks for all our authors, he holds open calls, marketing calls, where his knowledge and his wisdom is
Mhm.
freely accessible. His mantra is, I want people to make their book pay. So it's
Yes.
not about making it pay in individual sales. For an individual sale on Amazon, you might make £2 or $2, whatever it is, per copy.
Mhm.
If you
Yes.
market your book to an ideal prospect or client, you might make $2,000 or 20,000 or
Yes.
200,000. That's where you get the return on your investment, and
Mm.
that's where we help people with that kind of marketing.
Wow, that's fantastic. And you've been business partners with Joe Gregory for 14 years?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So
Time
what's
has
the secret of finding a fantastic business partner and staying a good, healthy relationship with them? Because
there's a
sometimes money brings out the odd part of people.
Yes, that's a really interesting question, isn't it? Joe and I, we met because he published one of my books, and we didn't even realize
Okay.
that we actually lived quite near each other. We met at a networking event, kind of quite locally to us, and got
Yes.
on very well. And then Joe had an opening in his publishing company that he ran then. And I thought, that sounds interesting. I'd quite like to work with this. So
Yes.
I kind of came and worked for his original company. And then I came up with the idea for Rethink Press.
Mm.
With a different business model. We tried that. It worked. Joe and I are really polar opposites in so many ways. We think differently. I mean, I'm an introvert. He's an extrovert. Have very different backgrounds, we're different ages. Some business partners are very similar and that works well for them. I think having that kind of range of ideas, but being able to work well together and
Mm.
listen to each other, I think that's really important. I'm not saying we've
Yes.
never fallen out or had an intense discussion about things. We certainly have, but that's important too. I think respect is a lot to do with it. Respecting
Hmm.
each other's abilities, knowledge. We come from very different professional backgrounds as well. So we
Yes.
bring different things to the business. And so we're not kind of fighting, vying for position, if you like.
Okay.
Maybe that's something to do with it. But yes, I mean, I actually feel very proud of the fact that we've got through 14 years and we're still working
Yes.
together. We kind of founded Book Magic together and it sort of continues. We are continuing to build Book Magic and I'm very much in there. Yes, there are other projects. I am interested in creating an app for writing fiction, for example, which is a
Oh, okay.
totally different market and audience and kind of a different premise, really. It's still just an idea at the moment, but I would definitely like to do that because I write fiction as well as non-fiction. So I think AI could be very clever in that field.
Mm, mm.
And then there are other books that I would like to write. I'm actually writing fiction at the moment. I have a podcast about, I was 70 last year. So I have a podcast with
Wow.
mine called The Year of Being 70. And
Mm,
we talk every week and talk about our long lives and what it's like being 70, where we've been, where we're going, and the fact that 70 is definitely not a place to stop, but
mm.
kind of an opening up. So yeah, there's all sorts of things going on that I'm really enjoying.
Wow, that's great. Are there certain advice you would give to people who are not 70 yet?
First, I would say if you haven't already done it, think about writing a book. And it could be fiction. You may have a sort of creative storytelling mind. Even if you don't publish a book, writing it is such a great thing to do, whether it's
Mm.
fiction or nonfiction. If you have a business, if you're an entrepreneur, for goodness sake, if you haven't done it right, it will be fantastic for you. Life doesn't stop. Being 70, just because it's a big number, it isn't an end point. Don't ever think that there isn't more you can do. I think it's all about stay open, take
Yes.
opportunities when they arise, find great business partners or partners generally, and keep learning, keep updating yourself.
Mm.
I'm not a typical I think if people think of tech business owners, they think of, young men in
The
t-shirts,
male.
kind of tech bros. And look, here I am, a 70-year-old white-haired woman thinking about starting my next tech business.
That's great. And you said for a female to be in the business world, especially the tech world, balancing being agreeable and assertive is important. How do you do that?
Sort of with practice, sometimes with difficulty. It is a funny thing. I also run a mastermind group of women, which is a lovely, it's called the Mission Mastermind, and it's all about sort of women clarifying and understanding and pushing through with their own mission, because I think that women in particular operate best, work best when they're trying to fulfill a mission, really. So
Mm.
I love working in a women only space, but I often work with more with more men than women around me.
Yes.
I am an introvert. I can find it difficult to kind of break into male discussions, if you like. Men are kind of
Yes.
often, I mean, not all of them, it's really silly to generalize, but, men are perfectly confident about putting their views forward and putting out their ideas. I often feel,
Mm.
and I don't know if it's, and I think a lot of women do, because I have kind of done work with women about, for example, why they're more nervous than men about publishing a book. And it is a kind of lack of
Yeah.
confidence, a sort of lack of belief in your own credibility and authority.
Mm.
I think you really have to push past that. But it is so much easier for women to come across as abrasive or bossy or, all those sort of terms
Mm.
applied only to women. If you imitate the kind of male
Mm.
behavior tropes, then you
Mm.
have to be aware of that at the moment. I hope it'll really
Yes.
change, and women and men will be genuinely equal, but I'm afraid it's not the case at the moment.
Are there any advantages of being a female in the business world?
Yes, I think there are. I think sometimes you can go to places where other people can't. It's sometimes more acceptable for women to be empathetic, to be intuitive.
Mm.
Sometimes I worry that if I say something that's too intuitive and not, factual enough, it will be dismissed.
Mm.
Women being too emotional. But I think that women are very good at reading the room, empathizing with people. I think often women are better at leadership than men, because
Mm.
they do understand the relationship dynamics that are going on, and they can
Mm.
manage them well. So yes, I do think there are definitely advantages in many ways of being a woman.
That's great. And before we wrap up, are there other things you would like to share?
Write a book if you haven't already. If you've
Yes.
already written a book, write another book. Don't stop. Read books. I think that's really important as well. Books are just the carriers, the containers of so much information and
Mm.
knowledge, and of all kinds of books. So lots of people don't like reading because all
Mm.
sorts of reasons, but you can listen to audiobooks if you don't
Yes.
like actually reading. You're not constrained anymore. And I
Mm.
think, harking back to my earlier days as a work-life balance expert, it is really important to balance your work and home life, relationships, children, whatever else is going on in your life. And that's a priority too.
Yeah. How do people find balance between work and personal life?
I think it's much easier to do when you are working for yourself. Well, some people would say
Mm.
not. You might be running a business and it's all consuming and you have to give your all to it. I've always found that actually physically working from home, it's just so much easier than sort of going to an office, being stuck in an office for a certain amount of hours, then coming home and having to do everything at home. It's about going back to structure. It's sort of about creating a structure for your life, really,
Mm.
where you feel comfortable. I think it's very easy for women, particularly, to feel guilty about particularly children, childcare. When children are small, it's very easy to think, I'm not doing that side of things properly. I think self-acceptance is really important, and understanding that every phase of life is different. You do the best you can at every phase,
Mm.
try and get the best balance, but it changes, children get older, businesses develop, things change, and being adaptable, I think,
Mm.
change, and thinking, well, I could do this differently. I could actually make that work better by doing things this way. There's one hard and fast way to
Yes.
say is what work-life balance looks like. It's
Mm,
not working 4 days a week. It's not finishing at 3 o'clock and those sorts of. It's what works for you at any particular time.
mm,
And if you're working for yourself, that's comparatively easy to establish. If you're working for somebody else or a big business, we'll have to negotiate, and
yeah.
that's harder, but it can be done.
Mm. For being adaptable as AI becomes more advanced, you said jobs for writers and editors is a concern. So how can people in those fields continue to learn so they can adapt?
I think it's really hard. I hate the idea of the human experts, the brilliant people that I work with in publishing or writers themselves losing out to this generic AI production. But there's no question that AI is getting better and better at producing human-like outputs, whether it's writing
Mm,
or correcting or coming up with ideas. So I think everybody is going to have to adapt. He's going to have to learn to use AI as a tool in
mm,
your own profession. But I think probably specializing, being an expert in your showing, demonstrating
mm,
what your human input, what level of quality you can add. But I certainly think the publishing industry is going to change inevitably, even though I think
mm,
all publishers at the moment are kind of holding back against it and saying, no, we are not going to use AI for this. But ultimately, AI is built on human creativity. The information it
mm,
finds out there comes from real people, real ideas.
mm,
It's very hard to know where it's going to end up and
mm,
whether the lawsuits against big I companies for stealing people's copyright, things like that, whether that's going to get
yes.
anywhere, I don't know. It's
Mm,
really important, and I hope it does. But I have a nasty feeling that the edges are
mm.
being blurred and will continue to be.
For Book Magic AI, you stand very firm about not letting the authors use the content that's being generated by AI. How come?
Well,
There's ethics involved.
there's ethics involved, and it's partly simply practical because the readers of business books really want to hear from the author themselves. They
Mm,
want to learn. A book is a one-to-one relationship with every single reader. If AI has written your book for you, it may be very nicely phrased. It may look kind of sophisticated and elegant writing, but it's not you. They're not
mm,
hearing your voice. Also, as I say, AI cannot get inside your head, so it can't reproduce your experience, your business insights, your
mm,
your case studies, for examples, your life story. You've got to tell that yourself. And if you tell it in your own
mm,
words, it will make your book much more valuable to you and to your reader. But also, a book is at the moment, I don't know whether this will continue, but it is a different format to, for example, writing articles or blog posts
mm,
or marketing brochures. It is published by a publisher, or it is distributed, even if you're just up self-publishing and uploading your book to Amazon, you are warranting in either your publishing contract or to Amazon that it is original content. And if it's not, even Amazon will ask you if this book contains AI generated content. So you have to be upfront about it. And
yes.
what we don't know is whether down the line somebody will say, hey, that book, this chapter is everything I wrote. This is my copyright. And you didn't know that
Oh,
because you got it off AI
yeah.
produced it for you and you thought, oh, that's a good idea. I'll just put that in my book. And we don't know where it's going. And the copyright of a book is a much more precious and sort of
Mm,
legal entity than just putting out an article on LinkedIn
yeah.
or in a magazine. So with books, you have to be super careful about that. And that's why
Mm.
publishers have that in their publishing contract.
Wow, so much to learn. This is my favorite part is I ask each guest to leave a gift, and that is a question for me and the viewers to think about.
Okay, well, because I am 70 and you are much younger, and most of your listeners will be much younger. Whatever age you are, I'm going to ask you to think about what you want to achieve in the next 10 years. None of us know
Mm,
how long we've got to go, but if you think perhaps in terms of your next decade, what do you want to achieve in that time? What at the end of that decade do you want people to say, wow,
mm,
she did this? If that was your last decade, what would you want
yes.
people to say about you from that
Oh.
last part of your life? If you can put that into words, what you would like to be remembered in your next decade for, what can you do to achieve that? How can you take a step forward towards either becoming that person or creating something, whatever it is? Decide what
Mm.
it is and take a step towards it.
That is so good, so strong. Thank you so much, Lucy.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me, Audrey.
Aloha.
Aloha.